Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the signing of the statement by the Defense Ministers of Japan and the Philippines on the further promotion of defense equipment and technology cooperation. I'd like to request everyone to put their phones on silent mode, and we will be joined shortly by our two ministers. Ladies and gentlemen, Japan Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi and Philippine Secretary of National Defense, Their Excellencies, Secretary Teodoro. Our two ministers will now conduct the signing of the statement. This statement by the Defense Ministers of Japan and the Philippines outlines their shared commitment to strengthening bilateral defense cooperation following Japan's revision of its three principles on transfer of defense equipment and technology. The two ministers have decided to discuss the transfer of defense equipment and establish a working group to advance these efforts in pursuit of peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. With the indulgence of our excellencies, we will now clear the stage before we proceed to the next part of the program. We now invite our excellencies to the stage. We will hear remarks from first Minister Koizumi, to be followed by Secretary Teodoro. Your Excellency.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Secretary Teodoro and the officials of the Philippines Department of National Defense for their warm hospitality during my visit. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to pay a courtesy call on President Marcos. During the Japan-Philippines Defense Ministers meeting we have just held, Secretary Teodoro and I had a very productive and substantive discussion on defense cooperation between our two countries. As the regional and the international security environment becomes increasingly severe, Japan and the Philippines have been working in close coordination. At today's meeting, we discussed ways to further expand and deepen our cooperation in the areas of policy, operations, and defense equipment and technology in a more integrated and comprehensive manner. First, I stated that the revision by the government of Japan last month of the three principles on the transfer of defense equipment and technology and its implementation guidelines will further strengthen Japan's contribution to peace and stability in the region and the world. Secretary Teodoro once again expressed his support and expectations regarding this revision. Under this new framework for the transfer of defense equipment, Secretary Teodoro and I signed today statement on the further promotion of defense equipment and technology cooperation. Through this statement, we agreed to establish a working group bringing together the policy, operational, and the equipment divisions of the defense authorities of both countries. We also agreed to move forward with discussions aimed at realizing comprehensive equipment cooperation, including education and training, maintenance and sustainment, operational coordination, information sharing, and the proper management of transferred equipment, with a view to the early transfer of Abukuma-class destroyers and TC-90 aircraft, as well as other defense equipment. Also, Secretary Teodoro and I welcomed the significant progress that has been made in Japan, Philippines defense cooperation, both in institutional frameworks and operations. By applying the Reciprocal Access Agreement, RAA, which entered into force in September last year, to the ongoing U.S.-Philippines hosted multilateral exercise Balikatan 26, we were able to bring in equipment to the Philippines and participate in more advanced training, which had not been possible previously. As a result, the quality and the quantity of the exercise have improved dramatically. This includes the first ever live fire training of surface-to-ship missile conducted by Japan in the Philippines, as well as an approximately 10-fold increase in the participation of the Japan Self-Defense Forces from around 140 personnel last year to about 1,400 this year. We also confirmed our intention to further strengthen our bilateral cooperation, including through the acquisition and the cross-servicing agreement AXA signed in January this year. Tomorrow, together with Secretary Teodoro, I will observe Balikatan 26. I very much look forward to seeing with my own eyes this new step forward in the rapidly advancing Japan-Philippines defense cooperation. Secretary Teodoro and I reaffirmed our strong opposition to any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or coercion in the East China Sea and the South China Sea. We also reaffirmed the importance of sharing situational awareness between our defense authorities. Against the backdrop of an increasingly tense regional environment, we concurred that both sides will hold consultations when necessary to ensure the security of both countries and the peace and stability of the region. In particular, as unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or coercion continue to be observed in the surrounding waters of our two countries, enhancing maritime domain awareness capabilities is essential to prevent contingencies and to maintain maritime order based on the rule of law. To this end, we concurred on the need to urgently strengthen and expand our bilateral cooperation, including at the operational level. We also agreed to accelerate discussions to promptly establish relevant systems, including institutional arrangements for information sharing, in order to increase the effectiveness of such cooperation. In addition to our bilateral cooperation, we agreed to further strengthen multilateral defense cooperation, including Japan, US, Philippines, and Japan, US, Australia, Philippines, the so-called Squad cooperation through frameworks such as Balikatan and Maritime Cooperative Activities, MCA. We also agreed to further enhance multilateral defense cooperation, including through ASEAN frameworks that share the fundamental principles of a free and open Indo-Pacific. As the international security environment becomes increasingly complex and tense, cooperation between Japan and the Philippines as strategic partners is becoming ever more important. Japan remains firmly committed to further deepening defense cooperation with the Philippines and to working together to ensure peace and stability in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We will now have Secretary Teodoro give his remarks.
Thank you to His Excellency, the Honorable Minister Koizumi Shinjiro, for his very thorough remarks and his momentous visit to the Philippines on this year's celebration of the 70th year of our bilateral relations. At this juncture, I would like to thank Minister Koizumi. He has just come from Indonesia and Australia, countries with whom we have robust defense partnerships in very important engagements. And he came here to personally witness the first ever exercise participated in by Japan as a SOFA partner and as a resilience converged partner of the Philippines. At this point, I would also like to pay tribute to the strong leaderships of both our countries in being steadfast in advancing purposive action on the necessity and with the point of preserving peace and security and a free and open Indo-Pacific under a regime of law and rules. And we also, perhaps at this point, on my part, I condemn any mislabeling of our converged efforts through disingenuous, albeit ineffective propaganda. I confirm all the substantives that His Excellency Minister Koizumi so thoroughly arrayed before you and described earlier. And might I point out that a distinction in this visit of Minister Koizumi, that the minister was able to engage the President in very frank, candid, and clear objectives on our way forward, and so carried on the tenor of our discussions in our bilateral earlier. And it serves as a guide point where our leaders and us can talk this frankly and candidly. It serves as an example to all those down the line that they should be as open and candid with each other in order to achieve our shared objectives. I also give my commitment to work very well with the further agreements that we need in order to further enhance and refine the partnership, such as of course, the preservation of secrecy, which is very important for our interoperational security, and it's fundamental not only for Japan, but also for us, and internally within us too, and other initiatives that we talked about earlier. We thank Japan once again for its review of the three principles on the transfer of defense equipment and technology and its implementing guidelines. And we were very happy to work with Japan in creating demonstrable results at the soonest possible time. And we also thank Japan for being there when we most needed them in natural calamities, humanitarian assistance, and disaster response. Most recently, in extending technical assistance to us in the Navotas landfill fire. As you have witnessed, the ambassador was personally there to bring in the technical experts of Japan to help us try to contain and finally extinguish the fire and address the side effects or the noxious effects of the same. And we have with us today something very valuable, which we can only steward and work to enhance and perhaps to expand in, in order for us to collectively address persistent and changing threats and vulnerabilities that we may find ourselves in a more unstable world. Lastly, our convergence is founded on excellent people-to-people ties. Our people work with one another, we trust one another, and we are one in goals, in aspirations. And we thank Japan for being such a reliable partner, particularly in this highest expression of bilateral cooperation between countries, that of actually our troops working shoulder to shoulder, because that, to me, capsulizes our vision going forward and our trust in one another. So for your visit on this momentous occasion, we welcome you once again, and we thank you, Excellency. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you very much, Secretary Teodoro. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, being here. That ends our activity today. We'd like to request the media to remain in place while the party of Minister Koizumi leaves the venue.